morning! Well, today we are going to go into the second section of my fabulous Taming Your Gremlin book. So, this is for people who are in touch with their childhood self and who like hearing stories that are for their benefit, myths that can be useful, and yet have a sense of humor as well. So, here's to philosophy that does not have a hemisphere, but is here for us. Okay, so the Zen Theory of Change. Here is my paraphrased version of the theory. I free myself, not by trying to be free, but by simply noticing how I am imprisoning myself in the very moment I am imprisoning myself. It's been said lots of ways by lots of people. Over 2,500 years ago, Lao Tzu brushed with picture symbols the Tao Te Ching, which included this wisdom. Simply notice the natural order of things. For to try to change what is only sets up resistance. Lao Tzu was a smart cookie. Trying and figuring it out. I hope that you will not try to figure out the gist of what I am saying. To try and to figure out is to invite your gremlin in on our relationship. 2 is company and 3 is a crowd, especially if the third party is a gremlin. Besides, what I have to say to you is none of his business. Instead of trying and or figuring out, simply relax and breathe comfortably, simply noticing what you're reading or hearing. If you get bored, confused, overwhelmed, distracted, or spaced out, simply stop for a while. More about gremlins. Gremlins are very sophisticated and have developed elaborate styles of blocking the natural excited, vibrant soul within us. As you increase your awareness of your own gremlin, you may actually develop some appreciation for his creativity. My choice to use a male pronoun in general reference to gremlins grows out of my very intimate, not to be confused with enjoyable, relationship with my own gremlin, who often presents himself as a male. I say often because gremlins change not only their gender, but their entire personality from moment to moment, from situation to situation. Your gremlin can appear as your best friend and advisor, or as your grossest and most ill-intentioned enemy. Regardless of his appearance, he must be observed. Left to carry out his own will, he will make you miserable. He might allow you on occasional highs, but most often he will lead you on periods of intense anxiety, sadness, anger, and eventual emptiness. Gremlins I have met. Many of my clients, students, and trainees have come to know their gremlins so well that they have developed their abilities to visualize them. They tell me that this has been very helpful in helping them to tame their gremlins. A few gremlins my clients have introduced to me are described below. Your gremlin may resemble any or all of these, but I assure you that this style of making you miserable will be unique. After all, he has known you for years and has developed sophisticated maneuvers for squelching the natural you within. Gremlins are far more complex than these few examples indicate. Those I have met have had an impressive repertoire of methods for engendering misery. Each, however, seems to have a preferred strategy. So the first one here is named the General. And the General, he's got a whole track of stuff you've got to do. And at the same time, he's saying, this is him here, right here, on the side. And he's got all this stuff you gotta do. Okay, retreat, I repeat. 4 martinis, twist the screw, deploy, attack, invest, move out, offense is the best, defense, home base, sell, you're not tired, keep going. And he says, imperative to your security that the scenario be followed to the letter. When I met Jack, he was 32. He was a financially successful attorney whose battles with his gremlin had saddled him with an array of stress-related symptoms and ailments. He described his gremlin as short, stout, bald, straight-backed, and wearing a military uniform. His gremlin insisted that Jack lead a life in accordance with a complex scheme of rules, regulations, shoulds, and ought-tos. He had Jack clearly convinced that were it not for his advice, Jack would be slug-like, ineffectual mama's boy. Jack had big biceps, a black belt in karate, and an inability to get an erection. The artist. Joseph was 40 when we met. He was a successful research psychologist whose gremlin had convinced him that unless his why do I keep having difficulty with the pronouns? Joseph was 40 when we met. He was a successful research psychologist whose gremlin had convinced him that unless the gremlin's, advice was followed, Joseph would eventually become destitute and lonely. From time to time, Joseph's gremlin showed him a beautiful painting entitled Joseph Leading a Happy Life. He convinced Joseph that fulfillment, happiness, and general comfort with himself would result once Joseph had arranged his circumstances and his life into a living version of the beautiful painting. As Joseph began to simply notice the artist, he also noticed that the artist was continually altering the composition of his beautiful painting. He further noticed that the artist usually modified the painting about the time Joseph got close to matching his life to the painting. This left Joseph feeling somewhat like a proverbial horse that follows the carrot. When Joseph sought me out, he was taking his third postdoctoral psychology residency and was considering suicide. The Hulk. Peter is a pediatrician and is recognized by his peers as an exceptionally good one. He calls his gremlin, the Hulk. The Hulk is between 8 and 9 feet tall, weighs about 500 and 600 pounds, and has an amorphous presence that Peter is unable to see clearly. Muffin burps. The Hulk watches Peter from the shadows and forces him into Peter's awareness, mostly in interpersonal situations. For years, when Peter felt even the slightest degree of anger, the Hulk leapt out of the shadows and with his powerful right arm grabbed Peter by the collar and warned him to sit down and shut up. Peter feared the Hulk so much that he almost never allowed himself to show anger, or even appropriate assertiveness, which he had confused with aggression. On the outside, Peter appeared a nice, gentle sort of fellow. On the inside, he was tense and miserable. The Big Shot. The last time I encountered my gremlin was about 2 minutes ago. A big man, mid-60s. He looks wealthy and flashy, black suit, diamond pinky ring, smoking a big cigar. His theme today is something like, "You're nobody, kid." He was pontificating with great confidence about how HarperCollins would quickly relegate this book to the backlist, and within a week or two respond to my inquiries with, Rick who? Gremlin what? He threw in some tidbits about age, a few "it's now or never" scare tactics, and something about starvation and complete worthlessness. When I brought him into the light so I could simply notice him, he shrank and became a whiny, pudgy, fat guy wearing a diaper. I'm certainly no master of gremlin taming, but I am a conscientious student, and I have been since I developed this process nearly 30 years ago. One thing I can absolutely attest to is that the method not only works, it's progressive. In other words, as you practice, you're going to get better and better at using it in tougher and tougher circumstances, and at applying it easily and swiftly. Simply my noticing is just the first tool in a 3-tiered process, but it is a powerful tool that you will steadily use more skillfully through practice. The potential is literally boundless. Each time you tame your gremlin on the spot, the natural you will come out and take over. You will begin to learn experientially, not just cognitively, the power of the gremlin taming process and of the natural you. As a result, you will develop a bone-deep self-trust and a confidence in your gremlin taming abilities. Your gremlin is not going to give up trying to nail you. That's his job. But you'll be so confident that your ability to tame him, that even an all-out assault will seem inconsequential and hardly worth your attention. So practice. Next.